Good afternoon and welcome to the FEMA Region 2 Individual and Community Preparedness Webinar Series. My name is Anastasia Powell and I'm a Regional Preparedness Liaison for FEMA Region 2. I'm going to provide a few technical considerations before we begin. Today's proceedings are being recorded and captioned. You should hear audio through your computer speakers, so please ensure your volume is turned up so you may hear the proceedings accordingly. In the top right corner, we ask if you'd like to receive news updates from Region 2. If so, please enter your email address and be sure to add it to our distribution list. We'll have a question and answer session after the presentation concludes. You'll see a Q&A pod in the lower right-hand corner. Please feel free to submit your questions about the subject matter there, and time permitting, we'll do our best to answer them. Finally, the PowerPoint presentation from today will be available for you to download in the file share pod as a PDF. You can click on the file and download it using the download button. With that, I'd like to introduce our speakers in today's proceedings. The launch of the 2022-2026 Strategic Plan focuses on three main goals that seek to strengthen, empower, and educate the American public. The first goal focuses on the emergency management workforce, ensuring that they are ready to support those served. The second objective highlights on how the agency can better support communities through FEMA programs. The third and final objective centers on how FEMA policies, tools, and programs, as well as collaboration with partners, can be leveraged to increase whole community outcomes in emergency management. It is that third objective in mind that we have organized today's event, recognizing that a whole community approach attempts to engage the full capacity of the private and nonprofit sectors, including businesses, faith-based and disability organizations, and the American public, in conjunction with the participating state, local, tribal, territorial, and federal government partners. Tackling systemic issues to keep the nation safe requires all of us, and today's topic is no different. The webinar today is in collaboration with FEMA Headquarters Grant Program Directorate for a virtual discussion about the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. The Nonprofit Security Grant Program, or NSGP, is one of those three grant programs that support the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency's focus on enhancing the ability of state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, as well as nonprofit organizations, to prevent, prepare for, and protect against, and respond to terrorist attacks. This webinar will provide information on the NSGP program and application process that will feature guest speakers from FEMA and the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. Our speakers today are Michael G. McGowan, who has worked as a section chief within the FEMA Grants Program Directorate under the Homeland Security Programs Branch since August 2022. In this position, Mike is responsible for the work of program officers covering 23 states and U.S. territories under the Homeland Security Grants and Nonprofit Security Grant Program. Prior to GPD, Mike was a grants management specialist for FEMA Region 2 in New York City since April 17. His responsibilities included management of the non-disaster mitigation and preparedness grant portfolios. In 2017-2018, he was deployed to Puerto Rico for nearly 4 months after Hurricane Irma and Maria. Mike is an EMI certified grant management technical assistance trainer and has instructed all elements of grants management to internal and external stakeholders. Izzy Chaudhry is currently a detective with the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness with almost 16 years of experience and served as the College and University Public Safety Association Liaison, New York Police Department Intelligence Bureau Liaison, Bias Crimes Officer, statewide coordinator for Interfaith Outreach Interfaith Agency Council, Interfaith Advisory Council, He graduated from Rutgers University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science and History and is pursuing his Master's in Public Administration and National Security in the American Military University, or AMU. He has served in the United States Air Force as an enlisted member and intelligence officer and is fluent in Urdu, Punjabi, and Hindi. Detective Chaudhry is also an instructor for Understanding Islam/Counterterrorism Level 1 and Understanding Sikhism. With that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Mike McGowan. Apologies, we'll begin. turning the mic over to Izzy, actually. Izzy, take it away.
So before I begin talking about some of those interfaith resources that we provide at our office, the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security Preparedness, I wanted to discuss a little bit about who we are as an agency and what our core missions are. So when the agency was first created, it was mirrored off the Federal Department of Homeland Security, bringing that counterterrorism mission along with the emergency management. And since then, the agency has evolved. So our three core main missions are counterterrorism, preparedness, and cybersecurity. New Jersey is one of the first to bring in a cybersecurity component within the state that focuses on some of those cyber threats. And that particular agency, which is under the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security, is known as the New Jersey Cybersecurity Communication Integration Cell. The purpose of the agencies is to help not only the state of New Jersey with the infrastructure on the public sector, but also to help those in the private sector. So in terms of those interfaith resources, we have various components that we offer to the public. One of the first things I wanted to talk about is what's known as the Interfaith Advisory Council. So the IAC was created back in 2012, focusing on bringing the public, meaning law enforcement in particular, along with our community. Originally, it was a group of handful of people just trying to bring those resources out to the community. Over time, the IAC has grown from just a handful of people to well over 3,500 members. Not only has it grown in that capacity, it covers all 21 counties and all religions. It is very encompassing to bring in everyone and make it very inclusive. Now, part of that IAC is that we get together 4 times a year on a quarterly basis, discuss various topics, including the current threat stream, what kind of other resources we are providing, as well as grant information. And when there is an actual event that occurs that's focused on the houses of worship, such as various types of attacks that have happened towards the houses of worship, Director Lori Duran, who's the chair of the IAC, actually puts together a conference call along with the Attorney General, the State Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney's Office out of Newark, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and other members of the government. What we do is we provide an accurate and much as we can provide in terms of information. We provide it to our folks in the IAC and what we're doing in terms of providing those securities at from the federal all the way down to the local level. So what are the type of interfaith resources we provide? Our office is very transparent in terms of intelligence products. So our office, under the Analysis Bureaus, puts together various types of notes, ranging from domestic terrorism to international terrorism or any type of events that have happened. This information is readily available right on our website, which is njhomelandsecurity.gov/interfaith. You could download these documents and actually read what is going on. Our office also provides an annual threat assessment, which outlines the current threat stream, not just on a national level, but really focuses on New Jersey. Our new threat assessment will be announced sometime in early next year, providing what are those threats here in New Jersey. In terms of other resources that we provide, along with our federal, state, and local partners, we provide security assessment. In other words, we actually go out and conduct assessments. We have a infrastructure bureau. Sean Gorman, who's my colleague, will be speaking later a little bit more in depth about our assessment tools, but we actually go and provide a free service of assessments to your houses of worship. The last thing I want to talk about is grants, which most people are interested in. So grants, there's 2 types of grants that we offer. One is the the Nonprofit Security Grant, which is the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency grant. That is a national grant, which is about $100 million or so. Last year for fiscal 2021, the state of New Jersey received $15 million of that. The grant application for that per house of worship was up to $150,000. Now, what does that grant cover? That grant covers basically any of the target hardening piece, which means that it provides cameras, doors, locks, windows, bollards, all sorts of various types of things that can help you secure your house of worship. The second grant we offer is the New Jersey NSGP. Currently, it's at $2 million. Now, this particular grant is a little bit different in the sense it's broken up into two parts. One part is that target hardening component, very similar to that of the federal NSGP. It's up to $50,000 per house of worship, and it covers all those target hardening pieces I just spoke of. The other piece is a security personnel. That grant is for $10,000, and what that is to supplement your personal security, meaning that you can't hire people on a permanent level, but you can hire extra duty law enforcement or your own private security. And the last thing I wanted to discuss is our SARS program. So one of the issues that we had after 9/11, and this is covering that counterterrorism piece, is that there was a communication failure from the federal level all down to the local level. So the suspicious activity reports is based on behavior. It's not based on color, creed, religion of any sort. It's based on behavior, which is a very important aspect of it. So we're looking for any type of folks surveilling, taking photographs of things that they shouldn't, or acting a lot, very suspicious. So with that reporting mechanism, in the state of New Jersey, we have a lot of law enforcement. In New Jersey, we have over 540 local municipalities, 21 counties, state entities, such as the New Jersey State Police, our office, the Attorney General's office, and then we have the federal agencies. In this particular case, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, Joint Terrorism Task Force, the JTTF. The reason I mention that in particular is the FBI, JTTF, has the first right of refusal because they are the lead agency on all counterterrorism investigations. So how does the SARS system work? So you, as a private citizen, see suspicious activity at your house of worship, you report it to local law enforcement. Each particular local municipality has what's known as a municipal counterterrorism coordinator. That person winds up sending that information over to the county counterterrorism coordinator. In this case, my friend Detective Mike Regan, who I work very closely over at Burlington County Prosecutor's Office, he'll review it and he'll send it down to our office, particularly what's known as the Counterterrorism Watch, the CT Watch. As soon as that information is taken in, it's inputted into the New Jersey Suspicious Activity Report System. It's a database that collects all the information. As soon as that information is entered in real time, that information gets sent over to all the people that need to know, and particularly the Federal Bureau of Investigation, JTTF. At the JTTF, they take a look at it, they review that SAR. If they find it that's information for an ongoing case, they'll keep it. If it's something they feel that they want to pursue it at a federal level, they'll keep it. Otherwise, that SAR comes back to our office. When it comes down to our office, we'll work with that county and local partners to mitigate that threat. And that's all I have, Laura. So this is our information. If anybody has any questions, you can reach out to myself or Detective Lieutenant John Page. Loretta?
Apply into the program. Questions about the Nonprofit Security Grant Program? Hello, my name is Mike McGowan. I'm a section chief out of the Grants Program Directorate of FEMA in Washington, D.C. I work under the Nonprofit Security Grant Program and the Homeland Security Grant Programs. This is Mark Saveria on slide 2. He's the senior advisor, the manager of the Nonprofit Security Grant Program since its inception, I believe, 18 years ago. Something notable on this slide is at the bottom there is an email address, FEMA-NSGP@FEMA.DHS.gov. If you have any questions about the Nonprofit Security Grant Program, you can submit those into that email address, and Mark is typically the one that addresses those questions directly. Today's agenda, slide 3, We're going to do an overview of the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. We're going to discuss what happened last year in fiscal year 2022 and recap what occurred there. We're going to discuss preparations for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program if you're a prospective applicant. And then the last slide, I believe it's slide 18 or 19 of the slide deck, provides a number of resources that will, everything you need to be successful to apply into the program. All the resources possible are on that slide deck with the links that work. The overview, the purpose of the Nonprofit Security Grant Program is it focuses on enhancing the ability of nonprofit organizations, 501c3 specifically, to prevent and protect against terrorist attacks. That's the bottom line. That is identified in the individual notices of funding opportunity under the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. The NSGP is part of a comprehensive set of programs and measures to help strengthen the communities against potential terrorist attacks, particularly in soft places and crowded places, of which many 501c3 religious-based and other organizations might be. The funds are to be focused on security-related activities and projects that will prevent or protect against these potential terrorist attacks. Slide 5. How is the Nonprofit Security Grant Program structured? NSGP is highly competitive. I can't emphasize that enough. It's highly competitive. Last year in fiscal year 2022, we were only able to fund approximately 50% of the applicants that actually applied under the program. I believe there were 4,500 or so applicants nationwide for the supply of funds that are available. Last year, there were $250 million made available to the 56 states and territories. This year, in fiscal year 2023, that has been authorized to be increased to $305 million because Congress recognizes the need and demand for this program. What is something called the period of performance? The POP, or period of performance, are all the project activities that must be conducted. It's the start and end dates of when these activities and projects are to be funded and completed. Now, organizations that are going to be subrecipients that are applying to something called the State Administrative Agency or the State SAA, if you're a 501c3 organization, you do not apply directly to FEMA. You're going to be applying to your prospective state SAAs. The state SAAs then obtain all the applications for, review for eligibility, do the screenings, etc., and then rank them, and then they submit them to FEMA for a second review. The SAA may provide for a more restrictive period of performance date. For instance, if your grant award is just going to purchase a closed circuit television system, that's a one-time thing. I've seen period of performances that are 1 year on those, but that's up to the SAA. Otherwise, FEMA is issuing a 3-year period of performance to the SAA for the entire award amount. How they parse it up and individualize it thereafter to their subrecipients is their call, and they have the authority to do that. Slide 6, the nonprofit program overview. There are 2 funding streams. I mentioned that for fiscal year 2023, $305 million has been made available. That NOFO, or that Notice of Funding Opportunity, is expected to come out the last week of February. That NOFO is almost your cookbook for what it takes to apply for the program, how to become eligible, and how to present a strong application, in addition to the responsibilities that you have thereafter for managing an award should you receive one. But the overall funding of $305 million will be split between urban areas, or NSGP-UA, or statewide areas, NSGP-S. So 305 million split 50-50 between the two. That's to ensure that every area of every state, has an opportunity to receive funds. When you apply, the funding stream is based on where your specific facility or your building is physically located. So it's important to know that, and the NOFO will help you identify the urban areas. There's 36 urban areas specifically, but you also want to work with your state administrative agency just to make sure your address is indeed within an urban area or a statewide area. It's vital that when you apply that you get that correct. You may be across the street from one or the other, but it makes all the difference in the world. So you want to make sure that you provide a correct application when you do apply. So please contact your state SAA with all questions relative to the program, because again, as a 501c3 organization, you're going to be applying to them as subrecipients. And by the way, there on the slide that has resources, there's a list of who the state SAA point of contacts are for every state and territory. So eligibility, FEMA as the federal awarding agency, we make the awards directly to the recipient or the state SAAs. This is on slide 7 now. The state SAA is the applicant to FEMA for an entire aggregate award amount. Nonprofits, 501c3 organizations that are exempt for tax under Section 501A of the Internal Revenue Code apply to the SAAs. And the reason for that is there's thousands nationwide. FEMA as an organization could never handle that kind of volume. So the individual state administrative agencies do that on our behalf. So you're going to apply to the state SAA as a subrecipient under the program. Another reason why it's vital to learn who that individual, who that point of contact is. Examples of state SAAs are law enforcement agencies, offices of emergency services, departments of homeland security and emergency services, etc. Eligibility. Who's eligible to apply? I said it before. 501c3 organizations as determined by the Internal Revenue Code, and you must be tax exempt under Section 501A of the Internal Revenue Code. Some examples of houses of worship, educational facilities, medical facilities, camps, museums, senior centers and care facilities, community and social services organizations, crisis centers, some event venues, some science organizations. Now on slide 9, these are organizations that are not eligible to apply, even though some may be a nonprofit. Obviously, anything with the word for-profit before it is ineligible. This is the nonprofit security grant program, 501c3 organizations only who are tax exempt under 501A of the Internal Revenue Code. So utility companies cannot apply. Any organization active in politics or lobbying, for-profit hospitals, volunteer fire departments, any government entity cannot apply. For-profit transportation entities, homeowners association, labor unions, etc. Allowable project activity examples. This is not all inclusive, but this is a majority of what we see. Very important, contracted security guards. It cannot be permanent personnel hired on. It cannot be public law enforcement personnel. It must be contracted security guards. That's very key. Planning, safety, security, evacuation activities, any trainings for active assailants, active shooters is permissible expenditures. Cybersecurity technology upgrades, security cameras, closed-circuit TV systems. We purchased many of those under the program. And in fact, some older CCTV installations that are very marginable, that we replace those with more updated, much better systems. We purchased many fences, bollards, and barriers under the program. Security lighting is another big one as well. Security enhanced doors, windows, and locks. Warning and notification systems that typically also alert the local police departments. Asset access control systems and alarms. Exercises, which is much like trainings for active shooter, assailant, bomb threats. There's something called M&A, or Management Administration. Entities, sub-recipients, nonprofits can keep up to 5% of the grant award amount for managing specific activities under the award, such as even submitting financial reports that will be required every quarter, or programmatic progress reports, monitorings. All of those things are permissible under the program. Blast-proof resistant windows, security monitoring services, and such. Those are allowable. Unallowable project activities, any typical everyday organizational operating costs. That's not the purpose of the program. The purpose of the program is to enhance the existing facilities and harden them against potential terrorist attacks. General use expenditures of any type. Direct hiring of public safety personnel, as I said before, such as local police. Development of their risk or vulnerability assessments. License plate reader systems, facial recognition software, and so on and so forth. Debris removal, self-defense training, pepper sprays. Absolutely no guns or weapons or ammunition of any type are permitted under the program. So what happened last year in fiscal year 2022? Last year, there was $250 million made available. And again, it was split evenly between the urban areas and the statewide areas. Now this year, that funding going into fiscal year 2023 was increased to $305 million, $55 million. I believe it's the only FEMA non-disaster grant program that received a rather major boost in funding. Again, because it's recognized the demand and the need for these funds. Each site that you may have can receive up to $150,000 per site. Your organization, should you have more than one site, can receive up to 3 awards of $150,000. They could be less, and we do, $100,000 awards, $75,000 awards, etc. But so no organization can receive more than $450,000 in awards if they have 3 locations, at least 3 locations. And again, it's only 150, up to 150 per site. Some of the takeaways, the problems that we saw with last year's application submissions were duplicate applications, probably just, inadvertent errors. They were administratively complete, insufficient, missing information about the organization, or blank sections. Many of the costs were unallowable or out of the scope of the program. You cannot act as a pass-through entity, as a 501c3 organization, and pass through funds to a government or a for-profit entity. Remember, they're not permitted to receive the funds. The only pass-through entity permitted in the program is when FEMA makes the award to the state administrative agency, and they make the awards available to you. The state SAA is the pass-through entity under this program. Insufficient threat risk vulnerability assessments. They must be tied to acts of terrorism and describe your vulnerabilities, especially to the site's physical vulnerabilities. Many of those, amazingly, did not have any of that language in there. Again, you cannot hire security guards as permanent personnel. It must be contracted security. We get a lot of errors on applications with that. And something in the procurement rules under the all federal awards, you can't just pick one vendor and and contract with them directly. Something called sole sourced. Get at least 3 or 4 estimates. Have those records in the file. And even do a cost-benefit analysis and supply that with your application. That's always wonderful to see when applicants take those extra steps. But you can't just reach out to one organization and give them a $75,000 contract or a $100,000 contract as for contracted security personnel. An unrealistic time frame lines for the projects or the activities that are presented. The goals must be reasonable and achievable. So preparing for the program on slide 16. The elements of the application are the mission statement, the completed vulnerability assessment, and supporting documentation, if applicable. We must see the mission statement of the organization in the investment justification, or IJ. We use the IJs, both the state SAA and FEMA, to rank, first off, to assess, the project activities. Are they allowable and permissible under the program? And how do they rank? Because we have such an oversupply of demand versus money on this program. Ranking, scoring of individual applications occur. So getting a completed vulnerability assessment, which is described in the NOFO on where and how to do that. You can do your own. You can have a local police department perform that for you. It lists a number of sources. It's always best to have an individual vulnerability assessment from professionals, if possible. And that's language that's put into the investment justification, and it's critical. The only thing that FEMA receives from the SAA for eligibility and ranking purposes is the IJ, is the investment justification. They will rank projects and also assess them for eligibility on the program, and we will also rank them and assess them for eligibility. It's just a second set of eyes, just to make sure that everything is done, especially because of the demand on the funds, that everything is done as correctly as possible. Preparing, generate your idea, research your risk and threats, get the vulnerability assessment, identify the material physical weaknesses that you may have. You want to, if you have a ground level structure and there's no barriers for a car ramming into it, that's a big one, etc. Or is there insufficient lighting? Are there no security camera systems? Are there no systems that limit who has access to the facility or not? Estimate the cost and timelines of the project. It's always best if you can get, like I said before, several estimates for anything, if possible, even if it's just 2. Because again, purchases of major equipment and services should not be sole sourced, should not be provided by just one entity, because all federal funds, contractors, etc., there must be free and open competition. Use the FY 2022 NSGP materials as a guide. At the end of this, on the resources slide, is a link to the last year's, the FY22 Notice of Funding Opportunity. The one that's coming out at the end of February for FY23 is going to be 99.8% the same. The only difference I understand at this point is the funding increase from $250 million last year to $305 million for FY23. Get to know who your state SAA, your state administrative agency point of contact is. A link, again, on that resources slide that's coming up will provide for every state and territory who that individual is that we have on record. And post-award, accurately managing the award. If you're fortunate enough to receive an award, the grant agreement between yourselves and the state SAA will outline all the requirements for reporting, compliance reviews, etc. You must maintain those. Here's the resource link slide, slide 18. Again, very key. Everything's here that you need to know about, learn about to be successful applicants under the program. And don't forget to provide, if you have other questions, there's that email address that I discussed at the beginning. So I want to thank everybody. I wish you all the best and all the luck in applying for under the FY23 program if you're going to. If you cannot apply this year, be sure to start the processes necessary to be successful applicants in FY24, should you choose to apply then. Take care.
Mike made some good points on the grant cycle. So what we do here in my office, and we are the SSA for New Jersey, after the federal grant is announced, we go through that review process Mike had mentioned. We provide the prioritization to FEMA. So that last year it happened early
No,
May.
we're talking about the New Jersey.
No, I know. I was just explaining the process for New Jersey going into the state grant. So we go through the process. The federals are usually announced around August. The last fiscal year, because we wanted to go through the process of the federal, going through that whole cycle, we announced the state grant starting from September 1st to October 31st. It's a very hard, dead closes on those grant programs. So if we're saying it's 11:59 on that day, that's the close. We don't accept anything after that. So there's a shorter period for the NSGP, that's the federal nonprofit security grant program. For the state and NJNSGP, that was from September 1st to October 31st. So I expect it to be about the same time frame.
So have the recipients in New Jersey been notified for the 2022 grant awards?
Actually, yes. That went out yesterday by email, and everyone else should be receiving the hard copy of the award letter shortly. For those who
Perfect. Thank you. Mike, there was a question here about Maryland state grants. So I'd like to take that to, do all states offer their own state nonprofit security grant, or is New Jersey unique in offering that? You happen to know?
Actually, I don't. I have no idea. So I have to apologize.
So I do not believe that all states offer a state grant.
Deb, I concur that. I think it's state by state.
Yeah.
So you would have to check within, like, I think I checked it for somebody the other day. That particular state happened to offer, maybe not extensive as the New Jersey grant program, but you would have to check from the state itself if they offer it.
Yeah, I agree. When the nonprofit security grants on the federal level are announced, is there a list by state of the recipients of that grant?
That's a good question. I know the state should have it themselves. Yes, there is, but it may be in a system that's only proprietary to FEMA. I'm really unsure about that one. I've never really investigated or had that question before.
Okay. I do have a question on where the application can be found, and I did move the slide back to the resource links. So would the application be found after number 5? Is that where we would find the application?
To go back to that myself. Yep.
The slide is currently on the screen.
Yeah, but again, that was, remember, we haven't released the FY23 NOFO yet, so that's when those materials will be updated. for the FY23 program. What's in there now is still for FY22. So don't use the FY22 materials for the upcoming FY23 submissions.
Right. So folks should start checking that website during the month of February to look for 2023.
Correct.
And if they want to see what was involved in the 2022 grant application, that's still there as well.
Yeah. And like I said, it will be 95, 98% of what's going to be in the FY23. I mean, once in a while, there's tiny little tweaks to the program, but I don't think there's anything substantive this year other than the increase in the funding from overall of $250 million last year to $305 million this year. One thing in item number 2 there under the resource links, the preparedness grants under FEMA.gov, that's just something to check every day starting from February 20th on for any announcements to funding. For
Gotcha.
funding.
Now,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish.
No, I was going to say that's where many of the FEMA grant program NOFOs are, because there's, I don't know, 25 programs in total, I believe, transit grants, bus grants, et cetera, port grants. But for the nonprofit security grant program, that is in that website as well. So it's something to check every day from middle February onward.
Okay. Now, Mike, this grant, is it open to all 50 U.S. states, territories, and whatnot? Because I see one of our attendees stat that it was only 23 states and D.C. were included in the NOFO.
Well, there's 56 states and U.S. territories in the NOFO that are included in the NOFO.
Okay. And I see that specifically they're also asking about Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I don't. It's kind of curious, and we're kind of perplexed. Puerto Rico, they're eligible, but they just haven't applied. I don't believe ever, and it's something we've been working with them. The U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. John, they have received NSGP funds. They have several awards, and they're only 30, 40 miles away from Puerto Rico. But for some reason, Puerto Rico is eligible. They just have never applied, and we're working with them to try to understand why not.
It's my understanding that they don't have the capacity or the bandwidth or
Could be.
The FAA, the states themselves.
Yeah. Your region 2, it's under region 2. True.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. In fact, I'll tell you, in last year's NOFO, Puerto Rico had a targeted allocation of $2.25 million, and there was not one single submission for an application.
So that's money that just gets left on the table.
Yeah. So all the states and territories and their targeted allocations are listed in the NOFO. Guam, every state, Hawaii, it's all there. So, yeah, Puerto Rico is definitely eligible.
So this is a highly competitive grant, and it's nationally competitive. But yet I hear you talking about money earmarked for a particular state or territory. So is that the way? Are there buckets of money designated, like New Jersey can get X amount of dollars, New York can get X amount of dollars, but not in excess of that? Aren't the New York 501c3s competing with the 501c3s in California and Texas and Ohio?
Kind of, but it's allocated, obviously, based on the potential demand and need of each state. Obviously, New York State, has 20 million people or something like that, and of course their urban area, the greater New York City area. So they are allocated a much higher amount than, say, somebody like Wyoming or Vermont. Vermont was 1.2 million last year. Wyoming was 1.2 million. That was like the two lowest amounts amongst all the states. But then, you get some, let's say New York last year was 3.75 million.
Wow.
For instance, so it was higher. California was 5.7 million that they were allocated. So I don't know if it's a per capita type of formula that they use for, according to population size. But then again, they want to make sure that states have something set aside for them. So one huge state, if they didn't have these limits, wouldn't overwhelm all the others, potentially.
Thank you. So we are at time, but I still have some questions if you and Izzy are willing to
Sure.
see what we could get through, if we could kind of move a little fast. Do you anticipate any changes from last year to this year regarding the cybersecurity allowances?
Well, you're talking about the nonprofit security grant program. There really were no limits on that particular activity. The limit is $150,000 per site and up to 3 sites per organization. So the limit would have been $450,000. Say if an organization had 3 separate sites and they got 3 awards at the maximum.
But you would anticipate that this year would be very similar to last year.
Yes, yeah, the 150 and the 450 are being maintained, absolutely.
Is there any help out there for nonprofits, applying for the grant, like going through the process, filling out the application?
Well, as far as the federal government, again, they apply to the state SAA. I know some states actually conduct trainings. I don't know, if New Jersey does in particular, but they actually conduct trainings on the application process. And then there's also grant consultants, which you have to be, careful of. There are some very good ones. There's some excellent organizations, and then some that are not so excellent. It's something that I cannot recommend to anybody, obviously, but there is help. But
okay.
This is why we're doing what we're doing tonight, for instance, at least, doing an overview and making and providing access to the materials necessary so people can be successful applicants.
So, Mike, I can't obviously speak for the rest of the country, but so we do actually have some stuff out there, including in-person training that we do conduct. But if you go to our website, NJOHSP/interfaith, and click on the NSGP, we actually have videos that we put together going through the process, specifically the investment justification, the IJ. Pretty much line by line, exactly how to fill out and what FEMA in particular is looking for in terms of. Yeah.
I wanted to say New Jersey did offer it. I just couldn't recall off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, we have everything listed on that, including other resources related to filling out the grant. We have the old IJs on there. I know you didn't recommend using the old IJ, but at least you get a familiarization of what the IJ looks for, the type of questions that are on the IJ for the justification. So again, the URL is njohsp.gov/interfaith, or if you just go on the website, click interfaith and scroll down, we have everything there.
Thanks, Izzy. Thanks, Mike. Is a CAGE code a unique entity identifier? CAGE code? No. Okay.
No, it's something. CAGE code is the actual location of. You might have a huge nonprofit like the American Cancer Society, for instance, and they'll have a number of cage codes for their specific locations. The unique entity identifier is specific to the organization.
Okay, I have a
Mike,
specific question.
Sorry, just wanted to expand on that UEI number thing. I know, Mike, you mentioned last year there was a huge influx at SAMS.gov, which
Right.
definitely caused a lot of chaos. I think everybody knows that. That's actually continued. So
Really?
the UEI numbers are not easy to get. I highly recommend everybody to start working on that now. And just trying to even get somebody on the phone to help you, it's not easy either. So it takes a few tries to get that UEI number even now. And last year, and Mike, you can talk about this, is that there was a bit of a grace period in terms of the UEI number because it was the first year. I'm assuming this year is not going to be as such a grace period.
That's what I've read. Yeah, no UEI, don't even apply. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, but it just overwhelmed their systems, their bandwidth last year at SAM.gov. And that's what I was saying before. The UEI, start that process tomorrow. Even if you're not going to apply this year, start that process, get registered in SAM.gov, and get the UEI number tomorrow. Start that process tomorrow. Absolutely.
That was actually one of the questions that I put in the Q&A, and that was, how long should someone expect getting that number to take? Like, if I apply for it tomorrow, am I going to get it next week, or am I going to get it next month, or 6 to 8 weeks?
So far, 2 no's. We have no idea. It's totally out of our control. It's SAM.gov.
Theoretically, if you can actually apply properly, it's within a couple of weeks. However, again, a lot of people are having a lot of issues just actually even applying for the numbers.
Right.
It's taking a lot longer than what's really allocated at the 2 weeks mark. I mean, you're talking 4 or 5 weeks, and I know Mike has been stressing this, and I stress it too. It is imperative you really start working on it, because you could do the site assessment, you could do the IJ, you can have everything ready. You don't have the UEI number, those basic requirements. My office won't even take the application.
Right.
And simple as that.
Okay. Does the size of the organization matter at all when applying for this grant?
Not, no. Are you a 501c3?
Okay. Okay. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask anyway. Can a local police department apply for this grant to assist 2 local houses of worship with target hardening and on-site security?
No, they would have to apply to the state SAA.
Okay.
They can't. The local police department cannot be a pass-through entity.
Okay. The state is that pass-through entity.
Correct.
They're the applicant, right?
Correct.
I
They're
see
the
a
only
question about whether or not we are going to have the NOFO in our newsletter. Absolutely. As soon as I get an email that shows the NOFO is out, it will be included in our next newsletter. I see some people were asking about the recording. We are going to put the link for tonight's recording in our newsletter, which comes out on Tuesday. And I also believe Izzy will be sending it out to everyone in New Jersey on the IAC, so they'll get that link. If you can't find the link in our last slide, I'll show you where you could find it, but if you have difficulty, you could always email us. And I'm just going to do one more question. I'm trying to skim them and talk at the same time. So there is no fee when going to SAM to get that UEI number, correct?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. All the slides are available with the resource links. PowerPoint is available. Who does a threat and risk assessment? I feel like Izzy talked, or both of you may have touched on this, but do you want to handle that one again, Izzy? The risk assessment, the site assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, New Jersey is a little bit more unique on all the outreach stuff. If you reach out to me, I put my email on the chat, which is echaudhry@njhsp.gov. In New Jersey, you can reach out to me directly. Depends on where your house of worship is located. I will coordinate those site assessments for you. Outside of New Jersey, and I don't know how the other states are structured in terms of having local folks do that. The PSA from DHS CISA, that's Cybersecurity Security Agency, they are the ones that will help you do the site assessment. They actually are certified to do that. So New Jersey, you can reach out to me. I think on slide number 29, number 9 is the PSA. So depending on your state, if you reach out to that inbox, they will send you the PSA, and you can coordinate with the PSA.
Okay. I think that's all we have time for tonight. Most of the questions, again, people are saying, well, what if I'm this and what if I'm that?